Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nick encounters his mortal nemesis. These are the spoilers for Wednesday, November 5th, 2025's episode of The Young and the Restless. The Young and the Restless next episodes. On The Young and the Restless, Sharon and Nick, Joshua Morrow. Nick swiftly made the connection between Matt Clark's return to Los Angeles and his son, Noah's accident. Matt is Nick's biggest and oldest adversary, as seasoned YNR viewers may remember. In addition to raping Sharon, he contributed to Matt's incarceration. Watch for Nick to face his deadly foe on Wednesday's episode. The two guys may clash physically, just as they did when they were teenagers at the Crimson Lights coffee shop. When Sharon accused Mitch of being Matt, he feigned clueless. Will Mitch follow suit and stop Nick from doing what he most likely wants to do? Suspicious thoughts. Vicky has the same brutality as Adam on The Young and the Restless if necessary. Luckily, Nick and Sharon may have assistance from family in Los Angeles during Noah's ordeal. Watch for Victoria to display suspicion regarding Noah's injury on Wednesday's broadcast. It's possible that Nick and Sharon are just too emotionally invested to view things rationally. The presence of Victoria, who also adores Noah, offers a new viewpoint on the matter. Vicky has a lot of inventiveness. She will investigate Noah's accident if necessary. Luckily, Vicky is not alone in Los Angeles. If Victoria decides to act her mother, Nikki, Melody Thomas Scott, is there to encourage her. Abruptly, Sienna. Roger Howarth and Tamara Braun on The Young and the Restless. Sienna was being duplicitous with Nick when she told him that Mitch wasn't around at the Shadow Room. Mitch showed up immediately after Nick departed. Sienna had covered for her man. Watch for Sienna to cover her own songs during Wednesday's performance. Does this imply that she will have to fabricate information about how long she has known Mitch or whether or not she is aware of his background as Matt Clark? Sienna is a straightforward woman who seems to be devoted to the people she loves. Sienna might lie if it's necessary to protect herself and Mitch. It's possible that Mitch paid to get Noah off the road. Given that Mitch Bacall from The Young and the Restless is actually Matt Clark, the man who sexually assaulted Sharon in the mid-1990s, we must presume that he was the one who drove her son Noah off the road. But did he do it himself, or did he pay someone to do his dirty work for him? Here are three possible characters Mitch could have paid to run Noah off the road. Holden Novak on The Young and the Restless. Holden is hiding something on The Young and the Restless. Holden on The Young and Restless feels like the most obvious suspect, since we've known for months that he and Audra have been keeping a dark secret about the time they lived in Los Angeles. So we already know he's hiding something shady from his past. Also, Audrey used to date Noah, so there's that connection as well. Does Holden know Noah? If so, is there bad blood between them? Did Audra cheat on Holden with Noah, or vice versa? On one of the mornings that Claire, Haley Aaron, was having coffee on the outdoor patio of her hotel, Holden showed up and apologized for being late. Why was he late? What was he doing? Could it possibly be that he was up late the night before, running Noah off the road? Holden knows Sienna and her husband Mitch from the time he lived in L.A. Matt Clark hates Nick. So it makes sense that he would target Nick's son, Noah. And since Holden and Noah might have once fought over Audra, then could Mitch have paid Holden to kill Noah? Detective Burrow. We already know that Detective Burrow is up to no good on The Young and the Restless. The Young and the Restless writers have already told us in so many words that Detective Burrow is not to be trusted. After he spoke to Nick and Sharon, he asked Nick for his contact information, in case he had any more questions. Nick typed his phone number into Burrow's cell phone. After Burrow left, he spoke to an unseen person on the phone and said he thought Nick and Sharon bought what he told them. He also told the person on the other end of the line that he would give him or her Nick's phone number. Was Burrow speaking to Mitch? Why would Mitch want Nick's number? Did Mitch hire Burrow to run Noah off the road? Oddly, we haven't seen Burrow since that phone call. He made a couple of appearances about 2 weeks ago, but since then he seems to have pulled a disappearing act. For all we know, he might have done Mitch's bidding to kill Noah, and then Mitch disposed of him. Maybe Burrow's dead body is out there somewhere, just waiting to be discovered. The shadow room bouncer. The club bouncer may be doing a lot more than bouncing on the young and the restless. Mitch may have the bouncer on his payroll for more reasons than merely to throw out unruly customers. The bouncer might not be the first character we would suspect as someone Mitch might hire to commit murder. But we need to take every shadow room employee we've met into consideration. We already know the bouncer lied to Sharon when he said Mitch and Sienna left the club for the evening. We know that isn't true because we later saw the inside the club talking about Nick. Sienna told Mitch that Nick had him mistaken for a man named Matt Clark. She truly seems to be in the dark about her husband's past. She honestly doesn't seem to know that the man she married is a rapist. But why is she keeping quiet about Holden's and Audra's dark secret? It feels like we can't trust either of the young and the restless. But Mitch is worse since Sharon has identified him as her rapist, Matt Clark. Plus, we need to remember that important phone call from about a week ago when a frustrated Sienna called Mitch and said he was supposed to be home 2 days ago. What was Mitch doing during those 2 days? Did he run Noah off the road himself? This mystery is getting more convoluted with each new episode. Stay tuned. Hopefully, we will get some answers soon. And we can't wait until Nick comes face to face with Matt Clark, his archenemy from over 2 decades ago. A storm brewing in Los Angeles. The California sun had already begun to fade over Los Angeles, draping the city in hues of amber and regret. The crash that nearly took Noah's life still echoed in Nick Newman's mind. The twisted wreckage, the flashing sirens, the doctor's grave tone. He could still smell the faint trace of gasoline when he closed his eyes. For most fathers, such a tragedy might have ended in grief. For Nick, it ignited something darker, rage. He'd been through loss before. Cassie, Adam's betrayals, Sharon's breakdowns. But this time it was different. This was personal. The dots connected too perfectly. A name from the past whispered like a ghost in his mind. Matt Clark. Or rather, the man calling himself Mitch Bacall. Nick's blood boiled as he remembered the last time he saw Matt. Bruised, smug, and dangerous. Matt had destroyed lives with that grin of his, and Nick had thought prison would be the end of it. But evil, as he knew, rarely stayed buried. The shadow room. Nick walked into the shadow room, a slick club pulsing with electronic beats and the faint smell of whiskey and deception. The place was owned by Mitch and his wife, Sienna, a woman with secrets of her own. Earlier, when Nick came asking about Mitch, Sienna had claimed her husband was out of town. Yet, minutes after he'd left, Mitch had emerged from the shadows. Tonight, there would be no hiding. The bouncer at the door, a hulking man with arms like tree trunks, recognized Nick instantly. His eyes flickered with something, fear? Guilt? Before hardening into stone. "I'm here to see Mitch," Nick said flatly. The bouncer hesitated. "He's not." "Don't," Nick interrupted, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't lie to me. It wasn't a request. It was a warning." Within seconds, Nick was inside. The thumping bass quieted in his ears as he stepped through the velvet curtain and into a private back room, dimly lit, thick with cigar smoke and tension. And there he was, Mitch Bacall, or rather, Matt Clark, alive, smirking, and just as poisonous as Nick remembered. The ghost from Genoa City. "Well, well," Mitch said, leaning back in his chair like he'd been expecting him all along. "Nicholas Newman. You don't age a day, do you?" Nick's fists clenched at his sides. "You've got some nerve showing your face again." Mitch raised a brow. "My face? I thought it was my name you were upset about." He smirked. "Matt Clark. Now that's a blast from the past." "Don't play games with me," Nick snapped, stepping closer. "You hurt Sharon. You tried to ruin my life. And now my son is lying in a hospital bed because of you." Mitch's smirk faltered for just a second, then returned, crueler than before. You've always been quick to blame Nick. Maybe your son's just not as good a driver as you thought. Nick lunged forward, grabbing Mitch by the collar and slamming him against the wall. You son of a... Nick, a voice shouted. It was Sharon, breathless, terrified. She'd followed him, afraid of exactly this, a confrontation that could destroy them both. The ghosts between them. Sharon, Mitch crooned, straightening his jacket as Nick released him reluctantly. You look radiant as ever. Time's been kind. Don't you dare say my name, Sharon spat. You have no right to even breathe it. Her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from the memories clawing their way to the surface. The night Matt Clark had stolen everything from her. The pain, the humiliation, the years of trauma she'd buried deep. Seeing him again, alive, smirking, pretending to be someone else, ripped open every wound she'd ever tried to heal. Mitch chuckled softly, like he was watching a scene from his favorite play. Still the fiery spirit, I see. You know, I always admired that about you. Nick's jaw tightened. Say another word and I swear. Swear what, Nick? Mitch interrupted. That you'll hit me? Kill me? You've tried that before, remember? Nick did remember. Crimson Lights, years ago, 2 teenagers with fists and fury. He'd thought he'd beaten the devil that night. He'd been wrong. The family ties that bind. Meanwhile, across Los Angeles, Victoria paced the hospital hallway. Her brother's rage was consuming him, and she knew where he was headed. Vicky was ruthless when she needed to be, a trait she'd inherited from their father, Victor Newman, but even she feared what Nick might do tonight. She turned to Nikki, who sat silently by Noah's bedside, clutching her grandson's hand. Mom, Victoria said, voice low. If Nick finds Matt, he'll do something he can't take back. Nikki's eyes glistened. Then you'd better stop him before it's too late. The confrontation deepens. Back at the shadow room, Sharon stood between Nick and Mitch, her heart pounding. Nick, please, she whispered. Don't do this here. Not like this. But Nick couldn't hear her. His mind was spinning with images. Noah's car twisted around a guardrail, the doctor saying it was no accident, and now the man who'd caused his family decades of suffering standing smugly before him. You think you can come back here, Nick growled. Change your name, open a club, and pretend none of it happened? Mitch's smile faded. You really don't get it, do you? I didn't come back to hide. I came back to finish what I started. The words hung in the air like poison. Finish? Sharon repeated, horrified. Mitch took a step closer, his voice low. You took everything from me, Nick. My freedom. My name. My life. You think I was going to let that go unpunished? Nick's rage boiled over. His fist connected with Mitch's jaw, sending him sprawling to the floor. The bouncer burst through the door, but Sharon screamed, Stay out of this! Nick loomed over Mitch, breathing hard. You're lucky she's here, he hissed. Because if she wasn't, you'd already be dead. Mitch spat blood, smirking up at him. That's what I love about you, Nick. So predictable. So emotional. That's why I'll always win. Sienna's secrets. Just outside, Sienna watched through the cracked door, eyes wide with horror. She'd suspected her husband had a dark past. She just hadn't known how dark. Hearing the name Matt Clark changed everything. Her hands trembled as she whispered to herself, What have you done, Mitch? Inside, Nick stormed out, dragging Sharon behind him. We're done here, he muttered. The cops will handle this. But Sharon wasn't so sure. Nick, he's already fooled them once. What if? I won't let him hurt anyone else, Nick interrupted. His voice was steel now, not fury, a vow. Behind them, Sienna slipped into the room. Mitch was still on the floor, wiping blood from his lip. Tell me it's not true, she whispered. Mitch looked up at her, eyes cold. You wouldn't understand. I understand enough, she said, tears welling. You lied to me. About who you are. About what you did. I did what I had to, he said, standing slowly. And if you love me, you'll keep your mouth shut. Sienna stepped back. You think love is fear, Mitch. But you're wrong. For the first time, he saw something in her eyes, defiance. The web tightens. The next morning, Victoria arrived at the shadow room, determined to find out the truth. She'd already done her own digging, background checks, financial records, and a quiet call to a detective back in Genoa City. What she found confirmed everything Nick suspected. Mitch Bacall's records were forged. His fingerprints altered. His life, one elaborate lie. But more disturbing was what she found next, payments. Large, untraceable transfers to Holden Novak, a man with a criminal history and a connection to Noah's ex, Audra. Holden, Victoria muttered, scrolling through her phone. You just became my next lead. At the hospital, Nicky sat with Noah as he stirred slightly in his sleep. His lips moved, murmuring something faint, a name. Matt, he whispered. Nicky froze. Oh, dear God! The hunter and the hunted. By evening, Nick had returned to the shadow room, this time with purpose and evidence. Detective Burrow had vanished days earlier, but Nick had a hunch the man's disappearance tied back to Mitch. A phone call to an old contact confirmed it. Burrow had been seen meeting with Mitch the night of Noah's crash. Mitch was running out of places to hide. Nick found him again, alone at the bar, nursing a glass of scotch like a man savoring his last good night. Round 2. Mitch smirked without looking up. Nick dropped a photo on the bar. Holden Novak, standing beside Mitch in an old L.A. club photo. You paid him, Nick said, to run Noah off the road. Mitch stared at the photo, expression unreadable. You think you've solved it, but you're only halfway there. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Mitch said, sipping his drink, that you still don't know why. Nick leaned forward. Then tell me. Because, Mitch said, eyes glinting, Noah wasn't the target. Nick froze. What? You were, Mitch whispered. Your son was just in the wrong car. The words shattered something inside Nick. All the anger, all the grief, came crashing into one unbearable moment. His fists clenched again, but this time he didn't strike. He couldn't. You're a monster, Nick said quietly. Mitch smiled faintly. You're just figuring that out? The fall of Matt Clark. Later that night, the LAPD raided the shadow room. Victoria's intel had led them there. Holden Novak was found in the alley, trying to flee, and Sienna, trembling but resolute, had given her statement. She told them everything. The payments, the lies, the threats. Mitch Bacall, a.k.a. Matt Clark, was handcuffed and led away in silence. But as he passed Nick and Sharon, he turned his head slightly and whispered, This isn't over. Sharon looked at him one last time, tears glistening. It is for me. Nick's hand tightened around hers as the officers took Matt away. Outside, the night air felt different, still heavy with pain but lighter somehow. Sharon leaned against Nick, exhausted. You did the right thing, she said softly. Nick looked toward the flashing police lights. Maybe, but it doesn't feel like it. Epilogue. Suspicious Minds. Days later, as Noah slowly recovered, Victoria and Nicky met in the hospital courtyard. Holden's talking, Victoria said. He said Mitch paid him to send a message. But there's more. Mitch had a partner. Nicky frowned. A partner. Victoria nodded grimly. Someone who's still out there. Back in his holding cell, Mitch smiled to himself in the dark. You can't kill a ghost, he murmured. The camera lingered on his smirk, the same one that haunted Nick Newman for decades, before fading to black.